She laughed while slipping on her heels. Too loud, too fast, the kind of laugh people use to dodge bullets. "Why are you looking at me like that?" she asked, grabbing her coat without meeting my eyes. I didn't answer. I just stood there, mug in hand, watching her fumble with the buttons she could do in her sleep. She dropped one. Her hands shook. That was new. "You think this is funny?" I asked finally. She flinched. Just for a second. But I saw it. "I'm going to dinner," she said. "Work dinner." "I told you." "Right. Work dinner. Another one. Another Wednesday. Another lie wrapped in red lipstick and silence. I took a slow sip of cold coffee. Let it sit on my tongue like I was trying to taste the truth. Then I said it. "Good luck on the date." It hit her like a slap. Not physically. She didn't stumble or scream. She just froze. Her eyes locked on mine, pupils flickering like she was buffering. No denial. No outrage. Just that sickening, involuntary pause you get when someone guesses the truth too close to the bone. And for the first time in months, I finally saw her. Not the version she curated with soft smiles and hollow "I love yous." Not the woman who still wore her ring, but only took it off for a gym class. No, this was the real her, the one she tried to keep buried behind spreadsheets and calendar invites and fake conference calls. She opened her mouth, closed it, looked at the floor, then back at me. "You're being ridiculous." There it was. The script. She stepped closer, voice honeyed and brittle. "You seriously think I'd do that to you?" I didn't answer. I just set my mug down, walked past her to the hallway, and opened the door. "Have fun," I said. "Or at least try to." She didn't move. I could see her reflection in the hallway mirror, still standing there, still staring, still deciding which version of herself to be. And in that mirror, I saw myself too, smaller than I remembered, tired, thin around the eyes, like a ghost watching the living steal everything he once called home. She left without another word. But her silence said more than any excuse ever could. The door shut like it had muscle memory. She didn't slam it. She didn't lock it. She just disappeared. And I stood there in the echo, staring at her reflection that still lingered in the mirror like a ghost who hadn't realized it was time to go. I didn't move for a while. Maybe 10 seconds. Maybe 10 minutes. Long enough for the heater to kick on and long enough for the scent of her perfume to finally vanish from the air. It used to linger for hours. Now it left with her. I walked back into the kitchen and saw her untouched coffee, steamless, abandoned, lipstick on the rim. She hadn't even pretended to care tonight. That stung. That quiet kind of cruelty you can't quote back to someone later because it was never said out loud. Just implied in everything they don't do. The lights felt too bright, too artificial, like the room was mocking me for staying behind. I turned them off and sat in the dark with my back against the dishwasher. Knees pulled up like some kind of idiot teenager, not a full-grown man who pays taxes and folds towels on Sundays. I waited for the sound of the elevator dinging again, for her footsteps to come back, for the words she might say, even if they were lies. But nothing came except the occasional honk from the street and the sound of my neighbor dragging her trash down the hall. Eventually, I got up, not because I had a plan, just because my legs went numb and the floor was starting to feel too familiar. I opened her laptop. I know. I shouldn't have. I really shouldn't have. But something inside me cracked, and it wasn't rage. It was something quieter, sadder. Like I just needed proof that I wasn't crazy. That the gut feeling I'd been trying to smother for months hadn't just been some jealous invention in my pathetic little head. Her password hadn't changed. That somehow felt worse. It opened to a Google document. I didn't even have to dig. It was just there. Titled Meeting Notes. Q3 Goals, but when I clicked it open, it wasn't bullets and metrics, it was poetry. Bad poetry. Love poetry. About someone with storm-colored eyes and hands that don't hesitate. Jesus. It wasn't about me. I hesitate all the time. I second-guess texts and rehearse phone calls and leave dishes in the sink because I don't know if they're dishwasher safe. I scrolled, page after page. Some of it was intimate. Descriptions I recognized only because I'd once earned them, long ago. Phrases she used to whisper in my ear when we still tangled up in blankets and laughter. Now repurposed, recycled, given to someone new. And then I found the name. Darren. Who the hell is Darren? She'd never mentioned a Darren. I scanned everything in her contact list later, and still, nothing. No texts. No emails. Nothing that said Darren ever existed. But clearly he did. He existed in her writing, in her imagination, in ways I hadn't for a long time. That was when it hit me. This wasn't new. This wasn't some sudden affair or heat-of-the-moment mistake. This was planned. This was architecture. She'd been building a new life, brick by romantic brick, while I sat on the sidelines fixing broken Wi-Fi routers and wondering why she didn't laugh at my jokes anymore. I shut the laptop. Slowly, carefully, like if I closed it gently enough, the betrayal might not count. I didn't cry. I'm not that cinematic. My chest just got heavy, like someone poured wet cement into it and told me to walk normally. And I swear, I could still hear her heels clicking down the hallway, each one sounding less like footsteps and more like a countdown. The next morning, I made pancakes. Not because I wanted to, or because I thought she deserved them, but because I didn't know what else to do. The mix was already open. The pan was already greasy from yesterday. It felt like muscle memory, some desperate little ritual that gave my hands something to do while my brain tried not to scream. She walked in just as I flipped the second one. Hair damp from the shower. No makeup. Hoodie 2 sizes too big. She looked normal, and that felt like an insult. Smells good, she said casually, like nothing had happened. I didn't answer. She sat down at the table, unlocked her phone, and smiled at something she saw. Probably a meme. Probably him. Probably both. I slid the plate in front of her. She said thank you. I didn't say you're welcome. I just stood there and watched her eat like she hadn't written poetry about someone else's hands. So, she began between bites. Are we going to talk about last night? I leaned against the counter and folded my arms. Sure. Go ahead. She blinked. She wasn't expecting that. I mean, you basically accused me of cheating. I didn't accuse you, I said. I just wished you luck. She looked down at her fork, then up at me with that same half-pitying, half-irritated face she always made when I took too long to make a point. Ray, I told you. It was work. And I told you. I said, my voice low. I don't believe you. Her jaw clenched. So what? You're just deciding I'm guilty? I didn't have to decide, I said. You already answered me. With your face. She pushed her plate away. I can't do this right now. That's when I laughed. Soft. Bitter. Like air escaping a balloon that had already popped. You've never been able to do this, Mara. Not when I asked why you started sleeping with your back turned. Not when I asked why we haven't touched in months. Not when I found earrings in the car that weren't yours. That last part wasn't even true. But she didn't question it. She just went quiet. And that silence told me more than a confession ever could. I walked past her, into the bedroom. Opened the drawer she never let me near. The one she said was just receipts and boring stuff. I don't know what I thought I'd find. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. But the first thing I saw? A receipt. Not from dinner. From a hotel. 2 nights ago. Paid in cash. Under a name that wasn't hers. I brought it back to the kitchen. Dropped it on the table like it was a dead thing. She stared at it for a long time. Then looked up at me with eyes that were already tired of lying. Ray, she whispered, her voice breaking like glass underfoot. That's when I realized she wasn't sorry she'd done it. She was sorry she got caught in a way that didn't give her a clean exit. She didn't speak again for the rest of the morning. She just sat there, hands resting on either side of the hotel receipt like it might catch fire if she moved too fast. I stood across from her, arms crossed, heart a hammer in my chest, but face completely still. I think that scared her more than yelling ever could have. Eventually, she pushed the receipt away, stood up, and walked out of the room like someone moving through deep water. Heavy, slow, like everything suddenly hurt to carry. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. Because while she packed her lies back into the hollow space behind her ribs, I was already building my exit. But not in the loud, dramatic way people expect. No suitcases. No slamming doors. No big declarations of freedom. That wasn't me. I didn't want her to know when I left. I wanted her to feel it. So that afternoon, I started small. I logged into our shared Amazon account and deleted all my saved addresses. Canceled my Prime. Changed the passwords to everything she used under my name, Spotify, Hulu, Netflix. All gone. The TV went silent that night, and she didn't even ask why. She just stared at her phone like maybe Darren could stream her something worth watching. Then I moved to the finances. Every shared expense. Split. Every auto payment. Canceled. I opened a new checking account, transferred just enough to keep her from noticing it first, then rerouted my paycheck. It took her 3 days to ask why her gym card stopped working. I shrugged. Must be a billing issue. She nodded slowly, suspicious, but unsure which thread to pull. And that's when I knew I had time. Time to move quietly. Time to reclaim every piece of myself she'd borrowed, dulled, and discarded. The hardest part wasn't logistics. It was pretending I still loved her. Every time she touched my shoulder, I didn't flinch. When she made dinner, I said thank you. When she asked if we were okay, I smiled and kissed the top of her head and said, better than ever. And the worst part? She believed me. Because in her mind, people like me don't leave. We beg. We weep. We break down. She thought I was too soft, too slow, too emotionally helpless to ever pull the trigger. She thought she'd mapped out my entire playbook. But she never realized that sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one who already packed. By the end of the week, I'd rented a storage unit, hired a lawyer, and moved my grandmother's old ring, the one Mara used to wear when she still cared, into a tiny velvet box I planned to drop off at her mother's house. I wasn't trying to win. I wasn't trying to hurt her. I was trying to disappear so thoroughly that when she finally noticed, it would already be too late. And then came the night that changed everything. I was brushing my teeth when her phone lit up on the counter beside mine. A text. From Darren. No lock screen privacy. Just 5 words. Tonight was worth the risk. I didn't breathe. I stared at the screen like it had spoken directly to me. My pulse thudded in my ears. The taste of mint turned sour in my mouth. And then I heard her laugh, from the other room. Soft, careless, alive in a way she hadn't been in years. She had no idea what I'd seen. She had no idea what was coming. And I finally felt nothing at all. After I saw Darren's message, I didn't confront her. There was nothing left to say. The moment I read those words, something inside me gave out. Not like a flame going out, but like a support beam quietly snapping behind drywall. You don't hear it at first. You just feel the shift. A slow sinking. A tilt you can't untilt. So I shut off the bathroom light. Brushed my teeth in the dark. Spit the foam straight into the drain without looking in the mirror. I didn't want to see myself. I wasn't sure who I'd become yet, but I knew I was changing. And it scared me how calm I felt. The next few days, I barely spoke. I didn't go silent on purpose. The words just stopped arriving. I'd sit across from her at dinner and listen to her talk about work, her fake exhaustion, the way her client might be moving to Austin. I nodded when I was supposed to, smiled when it was required. But inside, it was just snow. Cold, endless snow. On Thursday, she reached for my hand at the grocery store. It was almost funny. She hadn't touched me like that in months. But now, standing between canned beans and cheap wine, she decided to remember I existed. I let her fingers rest on mine. I didn't grip back. I just let it hang there like a handshake with a ghost. Later that night, she turned to me in bed and whispered, "Are we okay?" That was the first time she'd asked. I looked up at the ceiling, counting the faint lines in the plaster. "Of course," I said. "We're great." And I think that's when she knew something was wrong. Not because I said it, but because I said it too easily. She shifted beside me. Her breathing changed. Shallow, uneven. Like she'd realized the stage lights were still on and the audience had been watching the whole time. I kept my eyes open long after she fell asleep. That's when I started my final countdown. On Friday, I disconnected our shared calendar. She wouldn't notice. She never used it. That was my thing. But soon, her reminders would stop syncing. Her appointments would vanish. Her routines would glitch. And she'd blame the app, not me. At least at first. On Saturday, I deleted every shared photo off my phone. Not out of anger. Not out of pain. But because I didn't want any trace of her clinging to my life like mildew. I even found the one of us at the lake. The one she used to post every year on our anniversary, like we were some kind of fairy tale couple. I stared at it for a long time before hitting delete. She was laughing in the photo. I wasn't. And on Sunday, I packed my things. But not in a suitcase. That would have been too obvious. I used grocery bags. Trash bags. I folded my shirts between paper towels, wrapped my watch in an old hoodie. Every time she went to the gym, I loaded up my car. Bit by bit. Quietly. Slowly. Like sand slipping through a cracked hourglass. I wasn't running away. I was extracting myself. And the beautiful part? She still hadn't noticed. But the house had. Rooms felt emptier. Closets breathed easier. The silence between us stretched longer. And I could feel the walls starting to wonder when she'd finally look up and realize I wasn't really there anymore. The only thing left was the final move. And I was saving that for her birthday. Because if she could give her attention to another man behind my back, then I could give her something unforgettable right to her face. Her birthday fell on a Tuesday. She always hated that. She once told me it felt small when her birthday didn't fall on a weekend, like life refused to pause for her, and she had to squeeze her celebration between emails and meetings. I used to rearrange my whole week to make her feel special. Surprise flowers at work. Morning coffee with a note. A stupid paper crown I made her wear while she rolled her eyes and secretly smiled. I used to do so much for that smile. But this year, I gave her space. I didn't wish her a happy birthday when we woke up. I didn't remind her that she was a year older. I didn't bring her coffee in bed or cook anything. I just got up, got dressed, and left. She didn't ask where I was going. That was the most honest thing between us all month. I spent the morning finalizing the last transfer, not of money or belongings, but of ownership. The lease was split in my name and hers. I had worked out a quiet sublet with a friend who needed a place. I paid the next 2 months in advance and left instructions. Don't move in until Wednesday. Don't change anything until she's gone. I didn't want drama. I wanted erasure. At noon, I came home. She was on the phone with someone. I assume it was her sister because she was using that fake bright voice she always saves for people she doesn't want to disappoint. She was already dressed in that soft pink blouse I hated, the one she wore when she wanted to look innocent. She didn't even look up when I walked in. That was fine. I didn't need a goodbye. In the bedroom, I slid the last few things into my backpack. A toothbrush, a charger, a half-read paperback she gave me last Christmas and hadn't noticed I never finished. I checked the closet one last time. Only her shoes now. Only her life. On the bed, I left a single envelope. No name. No signature. Just one word. Thanks. I don't know why I chose that word. It wasn't sarcasm. It wasn't bitter. It just felt like the final note to a song that had been out of tune for years. Thanks for showing me who she really was. Thanks for proving I hadn't been paranoid. Thanks for helping me stop loving her before she found a cleaner way to leave me. At 5:07 p.m., her phone buzzed with a notification. I heard it from the hallway as I locked the front door behind me. I didn't check who it was from. I didn't have to. I took the elevator down without looking back. And that should have been the end. But at 6:42 p.m., she called me. I was sitting in my car, parked outside the grocery store where we used to buy overpriced cheese for fake date nights. My phone rang once. Twice. I stared at her name like it was a message from a life I'd already buried. I answered. Her voice came through, shaky and thin. Ray, where are you? Silence. She tried again. What's going on? I just got home and everything's. Where are your things? Why didn't you say anything? Is this some kind of joke? And I realized in that moment, she really didn't believe I could do it. Not me. Not Ray. Not the guy who cried during insurance commercials and apologized for coughing too loud. She thought I'd wait forever in the background, playing the loyal fool while she danced around her secrets. I didn't yell. I didn't explain. I just said, "Happy birthday, Mara," and hung up. I blocked her number right after that. I sat there for another hour, watching the parking lot lights flicker on one by one. People came and went, laughed, argued, carried milk and snacks and birthday cakes to people who probably still believed they were loved. I waited until it was fully dark to drive away. She never got the chance to scream. Never got the apology she hoped would come. Never got closure. Just absence. Just me gone. And that, more than any fight, more than any door slammed in her face, was the one thing she was never ready for. 2 days. That's how long it took before she cracked. I got the first email on Thursday. It came at 11:06 p.m., the time she used to brush her teeth with the door half open while humming Taylor Swift. The subject line was empty. The body said only this. Where did you go? Not why. Not please come back. Not I'm sorry. Just that. The most selfish sentence I'd ever read. Like she'd misplaced her car keys. I didn't answer. I didn't read the next few either. I let them stack up in the inbox like moldy dishes in a sink I no longer had to clean. Her messages started off cold, almost rehearsed, the way someone writes when they're trying to appear concerned. Then they got angry, then desperate. By Monday, she was sending paragraphs. She wanted to talk. She wanted context. She wanted to know how long I'd been planning it. She said it felt cruel, which was ironic, coming from someone who once giggled while texting another man across the table from me, claiming it was just work stuff. But none of that really stung. What got to me, what still haunts me, was the voicemail she left on the 7th day. I didn't expect her to call. I'd blocked her number, sure, but she got through on a different one. Maybe her sister's, maybe a burner. I only answered because I didn't recognize it. She didn't scream. She didn't beg. She just said, "I didn't think you'd ever be the one to disappear first." Then she hung up, and I sat there in the dark, phone still against my ear, feeling something that wasn't quite satisfaction and definitely wasn't regret. It was colder than that, like standing at the edge of a frozen lake, watching someone fall through the ice, and realizing you no longer have the urge to reach for them. I started dreaming again, not about her, about before her. I remembered what it felt like to sleep alone and not be afraid of the silence. I remembered mornings without tension, Sundays that didn't feel like countdowns. I remembered my own voice, unfiltered, unmeasured, not shaped by her reactions. It took time, but slowly I rebuilt. New number, new apartment, new coffee mug that didn't match anything we used to own. I started cooking again, not for anyone else, just for the smell of garlic and butter and the sound of something sizzling that didn't feel like betrayal. And yet, even with all that, she didn't stop looking. A mutual friend messaged me a week later, said Mara had been asking around. She wanted to know if I was okay, as if that question could fix anything, as if caring after you've burned the bridge makes the fire hurt less. The last thing I heard? She tried to visit my parents. She showed up with that same fake smile face she used to wear at church, acting like she still belonged. But my mom saw right through her. She looked tired, my mother told me on the phone, but not because she was sad, because she thought she could still win. That was the difference between us. She thought this was a test, a phase, a dramatic tantrum that would end with some tearful reunion. But me? I was already gone. Not just from the apartment, not just from the marriage, from her reality. And the most painful truth she would ever learn was that I didn't leave to punish her. I left because she no longer existed in the version of the world I wanted to live in. And you can't apologize your way back into existence once someone has stopped believing you're real. The last time I saw her, it wasn't planned. I was walking through the farmer's market near Monroe Park, headphones in, grocery bags swinging at my side like I didn't have history in my bones. The sun was out, not blazing, just warm enough to make you believe the world was still trying. I was picking peaches. I remember that clearly. My fingers were pressing into the soft fuzz of one when I looked up and saw her. Mara, standing near the flower stand, hair pulled back, arms crossed. She wasn't wearing makeup. She looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, just diminished, like someone who had finally realized they were alone in a room full of people. She saw me, and for a split second, she lit up. I saw her lips part like she was about to call my name. But something stopped her. Maybe the headphones. Maybe the way I was smiling at the fruit vendor. Maybe the fact that I looked okay. I didn't wave. I didn't freeze. I didn't flinch. I just turned and kept walking. And that was the moment I realized. I didn't hate her anymore. Hate is still a form of closeness. Still a weight. Still something that connects you like a chain. But I had no more chains left. No more rehearsed speeches. No more what-ifs. Just fresh air, ripe peaches, and the absence of everything she once took from me. She didn't follow. She didn't call. I think she understood, finally. That night, I sat on the floor of my new apartment, dinner in a bowl balanced on my knees, an old jazz record humming in the background, and I let myself breathe. Not just exhale. Breathe. Fully. Deeply. Like a man who had almost drowned and suddenly remembered how lungs are supposed to work. In a strange way, I'm grateful. Not for the betrayal. Not for the nights I stayed awake replaying things she said and trying to decode silence like it was a secret language. But for what came after. For the way I found out what I'm made of when no one was watching. For the slow, imperfect rebuilding of someone I actually liked being. And yes, I still talk to myself in the mirror sometimes. Still cry at dumb commercials. Still overthink texts and wonder if I said too much. That'll never change. But now I do it from a place of wholeness. No more pretending. No more waiting to be chosen. Just me. And that, somehow, is more than enough.